Welcome in Party Town Podcast, episode 4. My name is Elijah Bond. I am joined as, by my side is Alex Kane. And Alex, we have quite a bit to go over.
Yeah, we've been a little slacking, but it's been a busy fall and gonna be a busy winter too.
Yeah, well, first, um, let's go over the trades. The Blackhawks have been making some deals around the league, most notably with the Fargo Force, and then one other trade that we need to go over.
Yeah, we might as well start with the Jackson Nevers one. That one, I, I'd say it was a surprise, but he'd also probably came into the year thinking he was gonna slot in the top line or two. Blackhawks drafted really well, had some returners that developed probably a little bit better than he did. I think he had a stretch there. I think it was like right after the Fall Classic, he was banged up a little bit, missed some games, and the guys slide into uh, top line minutes over him, and then kind of once you get in that hole, unless you are doing some crazy stuff on the ice, it's hard to get back up. I mean, we hate to see returning players like that leave, but be able to get a phase one first round pick out of that. I only have one down, but I thought we got two out of that. I think we got like a first.
Yeah, yeah, I think we
And a
got a
fourth.
first round pick and like a second or third round pick.
But I mean,
Which
the first round picks huge. I mean, obviously Madison's been pretty good this year, and you probably won't be super high in the first round. But I mean,
no,
no matter
yeah,
what, first round draft pick's going to be someone that is going to 9 times out of 10 immediately join your team the next year and probably contribute. So it was I think it was a good trade for we open up that spot to a Nick Kasiba or Chase Jate. They get a little more playing time since they're going to be with us for this year and assumedly next year, and then see where their development goes from there.
yeah, a team like Madison, I really didn't think that they were gonna be all that good. Now last year, admittedly, when we went up there, when the Blackhawks went up there, and me and you were both in Madison and Green Bay for that trip, they looked really good. And they had the pieces a couple years ago, obviously when they made the Clark Cup final and ended up falling to Sioux City. But I admittedly didn't think that they were going to be, this good.
Yeah, no, I think they definitely had a good draft, and then have made some good trades. Getting Bobby Cowan from Omaha. He's from what I've been seeing just in general posts from the USHL. He's been having a good year up there now that he's in a team that has a heartbeat. And
Yeah.
gets out of Omaha for the time being.
Um, and what about those two trades with the Fargo Force? We sent Kieran Poulin and Ryan Zaremba to Fargo.
Yeah, Kieran Poulin, I kind of saw that coming. He was was continuously scratched, wasn't playing, and it was only a matter of time before the Blackhawks decided to move him, or he obviously asked to be moved because he didn't come back to the States to play to not play.
Right.
And then I mean Zaremba was a surprise. Um, I also get though, he started the year out, first few games of the year, you know, it seemed like he never left the ice because you always saw him. He was always in the action. And as the year goes on, you kind of see him, kind of fade off and started dropping down the depth chart. And when he was out there, you notice him, but it wasn't, he wasn't as noticeable. It seemed like, and it doesn't surprise me to. I mean, he obviously he got traded to Fargo and they got him on top line minutes, so that he wanted to be able to play more, and
Right.
he's still trying to get drafted, so you need to be on the ice to get drafted. So like maybe said in his one interview this week with Tim on Blackhawks Minute, it's it's a business, and it sucks to trade players away like that, but if they want it and it works for you and another team, then take the opportunity. Swap some draft picks with that, which didn't net us anything because it was just one for one, but makes him happy, and hopefully Ty Mason comes in, slots into that third line, and can just kind of give us a hard nosed, gritty game that we put our third or fourth line out with their top line, hit them hard a couple times, make them get chicken arms, and make them nervous, and throw their top guys off the game and make it easier for our guys to get in the net and win some games.
Yeah, that Zaremba was a surprise, especially the first couple of weeks of the season out in Pennsylvania, and then home opener, as well as the preseason. I thought him slotted with Brendan McMorrow, who, for those that don't know, is a NTDP product. So he's with the Blackhawks this year. They drafted him in the draft this past summer. I thought that they were going to be a deadly tandem, and they looked the part in the first couple of weeks of the season when the Blackhawks were struggling to score. They sent that line out there, and they did their job. So, yeah, it was a bit of a surprise, but towards the end of his tenure in Waterloo, he, as you said, he was getting slotted down the depth chart into that third line. So, Ty Mason coming to Waterloo. He didn't play last weekend, obviously with the travel from Fargo. He probably wanted to get acclimated to the team and his billets and whatever else. So he should be in the lineup, especially with Matthew Lansing up in Canada right now for the Team USA and CHL Top Prospects 2-game challenge, which is ending tonight, I think. Team USA and the CHL Top Prospects are tied. The last time I checked, they are tied 1-1.
It's 2-1 now. I checked that before we started. So if they sorry.
No, you're all good.
If they if the Team USA comes back and wins this, or wins the game, I was reading they'll do a 20-minute 3-on-3 overtime to break the tie of the series. So they won last night, we win tonight, and it was kind of a weird setup that the one overtime would decide who wins the series. But
yeah, in a way that's weird, but in a way it makes sense because you want to get those players that are on different teams, like Matthew Lansing, back to their respective teams, so they don't want to play another night.
Yep.
So, as I was saying, Ty Mason should be in the lineup with Matthew Lansing gone. And, so Kieran Poulin, Ryan Zaremba, and Jackson Nevers are all on different teams from 3 months ago when we did our last podcast. So the roster does look a bit different. Now, let's go and do a recap of sorts for those that have been living under a rock of sorts in the first few months of the season. So I am sharing the September results. So you see it was only 3 games. The Blackhawks won 2 of those 3, beating Chicago 4-0, losing to the NTDP U18s 5-2, and then defeating the Buccaneers 4-3 for the home opener. In September, it's really tough to be a team like the Blackhawks playing a team like the NTDP because those guys are nearing the 18-year-old mark, and they've been playing together for a couple of years now as the U17s.
Yeah, I think it was, I don't remember if Tim said it during the broadcast or if it was something I noticed after, but I don't remember exact years, but maybe ever since they counted towards regular season, but I don't think the U18s have ever lost, both games out at the Fall Classic. So, I mean, it's a tough draw to play a team that's been playing together for, 60, 70 games a year, or 67 games 60 to 70 games last season, and it's your team's second game together for the most part. So it was just a tough draw, but it's part of the scheduling. So be it.
Yeah. So moving on to October, this is where we really started to see how the Blackhawks were perform this year, and they started 5-1-1 overall, losing this game that I'm highlighting to Dubuque in overtime 4-3, and they started 5-1-1, and really, I might have overreacted a little bit. I thought the Blackhawks were going to be top of the league, and then they went on a skid. You see right here, they lost a few other. They lost to Fargo 3-2 twice, Des Moines 4-3 in the game. You kind of want to win, especially with how Des Moines is playing as of late, and then you lose to Dubuque 4-3 to close out the month of October. Moving on to November. Now we haven't completed November, obviously. So right here, the Blackhawks start November winning 5-2 over Sioux Falls, and following the next night to Des Moines 4-1 at the Mid American Energy Company Recplex. Moving on to November and November 8th and 9th. These, to my opinion, were the top 2 wins of the season.
Yeah, I think if Sioux City wasn't doing as bad as they are now, it would have been really impressive. I think it was impressive at the time, but I think those 2 games started like 5 straight losses. I think I saw for the Musketeers. And yeah, they've hit a definite skid. They started the year 5-0, and they've now dropped to well below 500. Let me look here. Yeah, I mean they're 8-9-0-2. So I mean they started 5-0 and they've been 3-9-2 since then. They lost Pritchard. He was he's top scoring player for their team. One player doesn't make a team, but it's hard to argue if you lose a top player like that it doesn't affect something. And yeah, it's just it's just such a weird transition to go from beating Sioux City in Sioux City to losing both at home against Tri-City, and then for all intents and purposes, we should have swept Lincoln at home. I don't know. I guess I shouldn't say that. Like we let that late goal in against Lincoln, but they'd kind of had the upper leg on us the whole game. We got back into it with them 2 power play goals. And you would have loved to gut out a win there after coming from behind. But you can't really bat an eye at taking 3 or 4 points from, the top team in the league. And, I think those were the 2 most complete games that Waterloo's played this year. They hard-nosed the whole way through. We were physical, took some physicality back. Didn't let it scare us. You kept getting to the dirty areas, getting the dirty goals, which to beat a good goaltender, you gotta, just put pucks on net, and hope for a lucky bounce, or get a good deflection, or hope it goes in off a defender or something, just to get that goalie off his game and get in his head and make it easier on yourself.
Yeah, playing Lincoln at home it's always tough because Rocky Russo is going to bring his team to play, especially after the Friday night loss. Playing Lincoln in as big of a series of the season for both of these teams at the time, they were battling for first place in the West, and it brought back those playoff feels from 2 years ago when the Blackhawks went out to Lincoln and won 3 games, and then last season in April when the Blackhawks got swept by the Stars. It brought back those feelings, and it really felt like a playoff series.
Yeah, no, that was definitely playoff hockey. Let's be honest, especially the way the past few years have been, we're going to see them in the playoffs again.
Yeah.
We still have to go out there for one more game, I think, this year, and another weekend series where we're in Tri-City one night, Lincoln in the other. If we can get that Blackhawks team every weekend, there aren't many teams in this league that we're gonna lose to. If we played those 2 games against Tri-City, there's no doubt in my mind that each of those nights would have been a 6-2 game. It was, and we just need to play for our goaltenders. Moore's looked fantastic so far this year in most of his games.
Yeah.
He's let some soft goals in. I mean, Vashon's been doing that too, but That's part of hockey. You know, goalie's not going to be a rock wall night in, night out. He's going to have bad nights, and that's when you need your defense to block some shots for him and let your offense put some pucks in the net to get a goal lead and just play from there.
Yeah, one thing that I've noticed, and I don't know if you noticed, but as you said a few seconds ago, Daniel Moore really, really surprised me. Coming in as third goalie and training camp and in the preseason, I thought, okay, he's just here on an invite. A couple of weeks, he'll be gone, and Phileas Lachey, who we'll get to him in a minute, was going to be the backup, especially with him coming over overseas. Me and you both thought, okay, he's gonna be the two, Moore's gonna be the three, and he'll go down a level to get better acclimated to playing overseas or playing USHL style hockey, I should say. But that's not the case, and Moore has been a very, very, very capable number two.
Yeah, I mean he came in his first game. It was at that 4-3 loss at Dubuque. He came in, held his own, kept us in the game for sure on that one. We both talked coming in. I figured he was going to be here long enough to be able to be protected for next year, and he'd go back to the NCDC or drop down to the NAHL just to get good quality net time. But we've seen it, 2 times in the last 3 years of we bring in a third goalie to the preseason, they play their way onto the roster. That's what started with Spicer. That year, I think it was between his first and second year, he was on a podcast with some of his buddies from back in Maryland, and they were talking, and then that was when he came in his rookie year. He was the third goalie, wasn't expecting to make the roster. He was just there for preseason to get some time and get some looks, and he outplayed the guy above him. And they'd already, they bought pads for the guy above him, but he played his way onto the roster to, be in tandem with Emmett Crotto, and, the rest is history from there. And, there's obviously some differing opinions about Spicer. Never, always liked him. He was a solid goaltender. It seemed like he, like most goaltenders, if he kind of got in a slump, he couldn't get out of it, or it was tough for him to get out of it. And, that's when last year when he went home for Christmas, just kind of decompressed, took a break, came back, and that first game out looked like a stone wall against Dubuque.
Yeah,
we were set.
After the Christmas break, for the first month or two after that, and I'm like, this is the Jack Spicer of last season. Where has this been the whole season? And he played really well, but obviously he went back to Maryland and is now part of I think they're called the Black Bears.
He's down in Texas with the Lone Star Brahmas.
Oh,
which is I just assumed when season started, I figured he was going back to play closer to home, but he ended up down in Lone Star, which is where he played for a handful of games before he came here, because that's where in that podcast, that's where he was expecting to go to Lone Star, but he made the roster here, so he obviously wanted to play USHL instead of dropping back down a level.
So we are looking at Daniel Moore stats. He's 3-1, 1-1, so 3-3 overall. 1 shutout, 2.79 goals against, and a .898 save percentage. And I would imagine that he will play in one of the 2 games this weekend, whether it be tomorrow night or Saturday in Cedar Rapids.
Yeah, I would kind of guess tomorrow night, since Calvin had both games last weekend. It's tough to say. Calvin played last Thanksgiving, so he's got the Thanksgiving experience under his belt to not be rattled by maybe the how I want to say this, like the prestige of it per se. And I don't know if you want to send Daniel Moore into the first game at Cedar Rapids. And, it's obviously up to Coach Smaby and what he feels, but obviously confident in either goaltender they put in the net for either of the games. If you're blocking shots and your goalie only sees 18 shots a game, you don't have to worry about that much. 9 times out of 10, you're probably going to win the game because the 2.7 goals against average and 18 shots, you're probably only going to get maybe a goal out of that. And most hockey teams, if you only give up 1 goal, you're going to win the game. But
right.
I think our offense is there. I think our defense just sometimes needs to help out our goalie, and if we can get that figured out, it could be a dangerous year. And I mean, even the way this season's went so far, we've technically got more losses than we do wins, but we're sitting 3rd place in the conference. Obviously, some teams have games in hand on us, but those games in hand aren't going to guarantee wins for those teams. So it could all level out to be good. And it's realistically just make the playoffs is the most important thing, and then go on a run from there. And finishing higher up, you want the home ice advantage, the better. But that's not all that important. And as we saw a few years back when Waterloo went to Lincoln and beat them in 3 games at their place when they were 2 seed, 3 seed, whatever it was, and we were the last seed that made it out of our conference. So it's just playoffs are a different game.
Yeah, so right now the Blackhawks 5-2-4, 10-5-2-4 rather, 26 points. They are, as you said, in 3rd in the West. 1 point behind Fargo, 2 points behind Lincoln. And coming into this year, the Blackhawks were, I don't know, I think it was 17-1 in their last 18 overtime games. And I'm like, okay, there's maybe pretty good in the extra time and in the shootout, and that hasn't been the case so far. I want to say we're 1-7 in overtime shootouts this year, or 1-6 rather.
Yeah, I say that was always been the highlight of when you go to overtime, it's pretty much we're gonna win the game. But that's the irritating thing. Like the 2 years ago when we finished 2nd to Fargo, we had won more games than them, but they some of their losses were overtime losses, so those extra points pushed them up to 1st place when we had won more games than them. And that's you don't ever want your team to lose, but if you're going to at least try to get it to overtime, that way you get a point out of it to salvage something with the way it is.
Yeah, and I think obviously I know that this Western Conference race is far from over, especially with Sioux Falls right behind us by 2 points, but they got 3 games in hand. They're 11-5-1-1, and then behind them is Tri-City, who is 21 games played, exactly 21 points, 9-9-2-1. I think the top 5 are going to be the top 5 right now that are competing for the buys. Moving on. Let's go. So let's first go to what's up next. The Blackhawks, obviously, as most of you know, they have their annual Teddy Bear Toss game tomorrow night, 7:05. Last I checked, which was Monday, tickets are running out. So if you want to go and you haven't yet, I would pull the trigger on getting some tickets for what is most of the time the highest attended Blackhawks game of the season. When the Red come to town, and after the first goal, you throw your teddy bears onto the ice, and those get donated to a local charity. So after tomorrow, the Blackhawks will complete the home and home on Saturday against Cedar Rapids at the M1 Ice Arena. That game also puck drop 7:05 in Cedar Rapids. For those fans that are going, Blackhawks fans usually sit behind the Waterloo bench, so those sections are C and D, and sometimes B, in Cedar Rapids. And I hope to see you there. I know that I'm going. So if you run into me, say hi, and I'll be glad to take a picture if you want, or anything else that you may need. After, where am I at here? After the 30th, the Blackhawks flipped the page for a 3-game and 3-day set. The first weekend of December. It is Dubuque twice, home and home, and then finishing off the weekend at home against the Musketeers. And then after that, I believe, is the Christmas break. I want to say it's the Christmas break. If this tab loads,
Yeah, it
and
is.
then so I want to say this is the longest break it's been for a while.
Yeah, I say we normally play like that. Like this year have been the 14th and 15th. We normally have games there. I think normally it's like Des Moines, Omaha, or I know for sure. Like it seems like we always play Omaha right before Christmas. So they always wear Christmas jerseys. It's kind of weird, I suppose, since we have so many games in early in the season. That's why it was, because I think that last weekend before Christmas, there's always like a big wrestling tournament at Young Arena. So,
Oh yeah,
and it's probably part of like our repayment of always having New Year's Eve and Thanksgiving at home. Is you got to do the let other teams have their specialty jersey games right before Christmas, or like their teddy bear toss games. So it's part of it. And I don't like the long break, but might be nice to get them home early, maybe get back to the arena a little early, like day after Christmas, something like that, to get them back ready for the ice, since we play 3 days after Christmas.
yeah, and those 3 games after Christmas are very big. With Fargo twice, and then Dubuque on New Year's Eve at 6:05. Finally, you got some news slash rumors that we're going to be going over with the major junior leagues up in Canada. Firstly, let's start here. It's obvious that the USHL is having some attrition with the top talent wanting to go up north. You see it with Rudy Guimond out of Cedar Rapids, the goalie. And then most notably, in my opinion, Blake Montgomery of Lincoln, who went up north.
Yeah, I had the Blake Montgomery thing. I had seen some speculation slash rumors that him and Rocky Russo kind of butted heads, and then the Lincoln traded away Martin Masha, or how you pronounce his name, since he's from I think he's like the Czech Republic, to Cedar Rapids. So I think it kind of made some stuff boil over, and he wanted out. And it's kind of interesting. It's whatever. Everyone, a lot of people on social media are freaking out, but I'm like, if our kids that aren't getting some playing time down here that have opportunities to go major junior, they're going to go up there and push some kids out of there that are in about the same boat, and then they'll need somewhere to play, and it's all going to even out, as right now. But there's some other major rumors that are out there that Youngstown and Muskegon have both. I don't know if they've ever formally applied, but they had approached the OHL about joining them and leaving the USHL. And yeah, I mean, I know the OHL, which is the Ontario Hockey League, which is obviously primarily in Ontario. They've greenlit. They called it aggressive expansion. So who knows what that means?
It's very interesting wording.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Aggressive expansion.
I don't think the entire USHL goes that way.
No,
but I would say probably east of, if that's something that does happen, anyone east of the Mississippi goes that way, and the rest of us will go to the Western Hockey League, which is your Alberta, British Columbia, Saskatchewan, which it doesn't help out travel for anybody down in Iowa, especially. I think I saw somewhere even Fargo is like a 3 to 5 hour bus ride to the closest WHL team. So it's It's not anything good. I don't know if maybe even like the Iowa teams get absorbed to the OHL if that happens, since that's just going back up into Michigan and across across the border up there. It's interesting times. I don't think the USHL is going anywhere. They've worked too hard to get to where they are. Glenn Heffernan has already said that there's been multiple owners that have been in contact and are interested in having their own USHL franchise. So I could see it being something where we lose 3, but we expand those back out to different cities and expand westward instead of eastward. And I personally, I think we need to go, like maybe southwest. St. Louis is blowing up into a hockey city between
right.
Lindenwood going Division I, all the the junior, or not the junior, but like prep and little kids programs. You got amazing facilities down at Centene Ice Center that you could slot a team into right away if it's if it's seats enough. Then you could throw in Kansas City, and I know we've already had teams in Kansas City that have failed, but that was years ago, back before hockey's exploded in the States the way it has. From there you can go to Kansas City and maybe down to Oklahoma, or another team, the western side of South Dakota. I think that's, in my opinion, that's probably where hockey's going to expand to, because if you go any further east, you're going to start finding teams that try to jump to the Ontario Hockey League, or it's going to be a very fluid situation, it seems like, for the next couple of years, because it sounds like some of these expansion rumors of the OHL could take effect as soon as next season. So like we're talking like almost immediate reform or fluidity of what teams are where, and it'll be interesting.
Yeah, and as you said, I think the league wouldn't want to expand east. You want to go south, because right now the 5 Iowa teams are the most southern teams in the league. Unless Omaha and Lincoln are on that same direct line, I think the Iowa teams are the most southern teams. Like you said, St. Louis, they've exploded. Kansas City, there's 2 teams right there that I think could do well given the proper time and the energy and space, and they need an arena. You see that 10 years ago, after the Indiana Ice defeated the Blackhawks in Game 5 of the Clark Cup final, they folded because they didn't have an arena. They played half their games at one arena, half their games the other arena. So they would need an arena, and they would need the time and the effort to go into that expansion franchise. And right now, as you said, people are freaking out on social media, and I'm trying to stay level-headed because we're 3 months into this season, and why worry about next season when you have these teams here now, and you still got 6 months of hockey in front of you? So, players are going to want to move, and they're going to want more playing time. So if they can't find it in a trade, they're going to go up north. That's how it's going to go. Last segment here on tonight's podcast, we have some questions. First, this is coming from Byron Peck. Quote, what are your thoughts on Huck? I think the way he handles the puck should get him more chances. Should get him some more power play chances.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that 100%. He's found his way into the roster, and he plays exactly how maybe wants players to play. Fast, hard, be a menace to their team trying to get out of their zone. I wish he'd shoot a little bit more. It seems like he tries to make the extra pass, and it gets broke up or something. And sometimes you don't want guys to be overly aggressive or selfish, but there's some times where he seems like he passes up a good shot for a try to make a play, and it gets broken up because someone anticipates it, or so be it. But I don't have any qualms with that trade. I like Butella as a player. But again, I think he would have been in the same scenario as Nevers, where he would have kind of got buried to that third or fourth line, and wouldn't have had a chance to move up, because it's hard to argue our top two lines, are as probably as competitive as any of them in the league. And yeah, Huck's found his way in, plays hard, is quick, pressure, puts pressure on the defense, or technically I guess it'd be their offense to get out of the zone. And that's all you can ask for. I mean, those type of players get rewarded. That's why, over the course of last year, I grew to like Grady Deering so much. Is, besides being an Iowa boy, he was just always at the front of the net with the stick on the ice, and cash in on them rebounds or loose pucks that you go to the dirty area, and you're gonna get rewarded. You play hard, get in there, throw some elbows around. You're gonna get yours, whether you get a tip or you pick up a loose puck cross crease to someone open on the backside because everyone's crashing on you. I mean, he's a good blue collar player, and I think the sky's the limit for him. He's gonna. I think the story is he's this is only his this would be his third or fourth year of playing hockey, dedicated only to hockey. He was still trying to do baseball and stuff like that through high school, so he's relatively green compared to some of these guys that have been specializing in hockey since they were 5 years old, which there's something to be said about one sport athletes aren't you can do as much paid training and specialty training as you want, but there's a reason why so many high school coaches, football, high school football, college football coaches want kids that wrestle, because they understand low center of gravity, you need to be lower than the person you're going against. So these other sports that they may take your time away from getting your specialty training and stuff for a certain sport, but you're just becoming a better athlete overall, and getting your body to do different movements, which may or may not help with injuries. I mean, if you don't have if you're playing sports year round and your body doesn't get a good break to recover, but even that front of the athletic worlds came so far with all the the low pressure chambers you can go in, the compression leg sleeves, I don't know what they're called, where they air up and they help recover your legs and all that stuff. It's just the technology advancements has helped a lot. So you can hit the training hard and get improved quickly. So
next question, we got a few from Corey Stearns. First one: how will the new rules changes for the CHL and NCAA? How will they affect the USHL? I think we've kind of gone over that already. I don't think it'll affect a lot, because the players don't want playing time. They're not getting playing time, or they're not in a good environment. Like some of the Blake Montgomery rumors start going around, they'll move, and they want a better environment or more playing time. They'll move, just like if they were request a trade in the league. The second one: how will NIL deals affect the league going forward?
Well, NIL shouldn't affect anything at all. I mean, that's purely college. And even at that, it's not up to the college on who gets what NIL deals. That's
right.
That's where a lot of people are, not trying to, offend anyone, but that's where some of the, the older crowd, that are used to, back in the day where, your college athletes actually stayed at school for 4 years and just bided their time and earned their playing time, which is, a whole other topic. But the NIL isn't, NIL is not the colleges paying the players. It's our players where they go do the commercials up on the Jumbotron at, King Bucks or the smoothie place. If that was college, those players would have been selected by said business and compensated however, they agreed on, whether it was, you get X amount of % off your order for, while you're here, or if you do X amount of commercials, you get X amount of dollars per commercial. So I don't think it's not going to affect, the USHL any sort of way.
No, I don't. I don't think
there's
so
other, I mean, there's
either.
other things that'll affect that. Like one of the things I saw on Facebook that someone had said it sounded like Ty Mason was having some paper issues, which I don't know if that would have been like visa issues because he was already in Fargo, so I don't know if it was just like some
Right.
transfer paper details, or like there's certain rules where like I know Emmett at one of the banquets, I think, or maybe it was a booster club get together where he had said he like almost got deported one year because he had earned too much money on being on like a a work visa or student visa or whatever it was, being from Canada, and like there was some issues that came out of that because he'd earn over what he was allowed to earn on said visa. So it's just those are the stuff that is going to affect us. Yeah, NIL is going to be strictly college, and even when it comes to hockey, I don't think the hockey players are getting the type of NIL deals that the football players are, just from a
Right.
supply and demand aspect of the whole thing.
Yeah, another aspect that I don't know if some players or some people understand, the money that you donate to the NIL, that money goes to what's called a collective. Like Iowa, they have the Storm Collective. Iowa State, they have the We Will Collective, and then they pay the players if they do like you said, commercials or whatever have you. I myself, I donate to the Swarm every month. I don't donate to the University of Iowa, so I think that's another thing that people should understand is that in order, if this were to happen hypothetically, each team would need to have an NIL collective raising money for the Lincoln Stars or the Cedar Rapids Rough Riders or the Tri-City Storm. Those teams would need a collective, and right now, I think the closest thing these teams have to a collective is the Booster Club.
Yeah, I say that's another thing that would definitely affect the league. Is if we going back to the CHL, that was the whole deal with the CHL players. Why they couldn't play NCAA is because the CHL players receive a stipend every month from the team they play for. So that's where they lose their where they originally lost their college eligibility, is because they were technically considered professionals because they were getting paid by the team to play. And I mean, you could have a kid, say he was drafted 20th in the first round, signs his NHL contract, goes to preseason with the St. Louis Blues, the Chicago Blackhawks, whatever. But if he's not 20 and he doesn't make the NHL roster, he can't play AHL. Because I think they called it like indentured servitude is like the clause or the whatever that if you're under 20 and don't make your pro roster on your pro contract, you go back to your major junior team up in Canada to play, and you can play. I think you can play 10 games for your pro team before you tick off a year of your entry level contract. So you could have a kid that gets drafted one year, plays 10 games, and then next season makes the pro roster, and he's technically a rookie and technically has not burned any of his contract because he hasn't met the threshold for games played. So that's where if we absorb into the CHL, or if we kind of make one big super league and we get considered like true major junior, that's going to be something that could affect certain teams too. I think it's probably like a uniform stipend where everyone on the team gets $150 a month or whatever, because I know it's not a lot. That way there's no, oh well, we'll give you $250 if you play for us because Lincoln's only offering $175 and we want you to play for us, so we'll give you $250. I don't think there's any like negotiations based on that.
Right. Next question involves trades. We got over them. Next question is, quote, overall thoughts on team performance, identity of the team, and how the team should look to improve via any new trades moving forward or roster moves.
I'd say our identity is your typical Smaby team that we've seen since the beginning, since he could really build his team. Hard on the forecheck, make it hard for the other team to get out of the zone, and just get in their face, rough them up within the rules, legally, and just be a pest to play against. I still think there's something coming with adding a defenseman, whether we call Chase Reed back up from Bismarck or, go get someone or wait, see what happens, after the winter break with college and have kids come back, with the Caden Brown situation. Because I just don't see a way we run the rest of the season with 7 defensemen. Because if you lose someone to an extra tournament, a suspension or an injury, you drop to 6 really fast, and one more injury, you're down to 5, and that's really thin on the defense. And
right.
And right now we don't, we have, if we play our typical 13 forwards, 7 defensemen, we have 1 scratch on, overall. Whether, like this weekend, it'll obviously be Lansing, and assuming nothing happens, so we don't have an extra player for if someone gets injured Thursday and needs to play Saturday. Like, I don't know if they have their eyes on some college kids coming back. That's something where, I always try to keep an eye on the protected list and Twitter, because there's people out there that have more knowledge of some of that stuff than I do.
Right.
And, that's where last year, I think, like I knew that we had the possibility of getting, was it last year? No, 2 years ago we got Caden Brown.
2 years. Yeah, I think so.
I had seen that, I think that was before Thanksgiving, that Waterloo had added him into their protected list in case he left college. And then, he left college, came back, and I think he started his career here with like a 6 or 8 game point streak. He came back and was dominant right away.
Yeah, and it's interesting. For those that don't follow the Years of Show website very well, there's a tab called Suspensions and Transactions where you see everybody gets suspended and every transaction that the league has to certify. A couple months ago, it was first couple weeks of the season, Blackhawks had dropped a player by the name of John Whipple. He is currently playing for the Minnesota Golden Gophers in the NCAA. So, to your point, there is probably a couple players that the Blackhawks have their eyes on for that same reason, like a Caden Brown, because I think it's evident because they dropped John Whipple because he's playing up in Minnesota. But yeah, I do think that the Blackhawks will add another defenseman, because like you said, one goes down, not in a good spot. And the last question, and this will close out the podcast for the night. Possibly, what is the possibility of some affiliates that might step in at different parts of the season?
Yeah, I mean, with that, I would fully expect we see Noah Davidson at some point. Maybe, maybe that for that last weekend we play before Christmas, since Vic Morrow will be gone. It seems like we normally bring up, a kid or two for that last couple of games before Christmas. I think that's where we first saw Chase Jete last year, was like when we went out to Omaha and wherever before Christmas. I know we did that a couple years ago with Kieran Poulin, after we had drafted him a couple years back. I'm just trying to get back to the draft list. I'm assuming, probably see Caden Harvey at some point. I just saw he's getting called up again this weekend to play with the under 17 team for Team USA. So, I mean, he's obviously playing good and drawing some attention to himself to Team USA. And if I had to pick one more of like our 08s we just drafted, I'd say maybe Leo LaShawn, defenseman out of Pittsburgh Penguins elite program. He started the year playing with the U17s when they were doing like kind of like their NAL tour, playing the North American Hockey League teams. And he there was a video out there, at 16 years old, he dropped the gloves with a kid from the NAL that was, he was 19. So, I mean, he's not afraid to, drop them and, being on Team USA. Definitely not afraid to drop him, especially when he's going against kids that are probably bigger and a little bit stronger than him.
So that will close out episode 4 of the Party Town podcast. I hope to see you all tomorrow night in Waterloo, but if I don't, have a happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you next time.
See you around. Happy Thanksgiving.